Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Foundation for Free Enterprise Education Speaker Series. My name is Scott Lee, and today I'm excited to have with us a great friend of the Foundation and PFEW speaker, Jessica Rich. And she's going to speak to us today about how to really define success, and it may not be what you think it is. This is a fantastic topic, and I can't wait to get into it. But first, a little bit about Jessica. She holds a bachelor's degree in business management from Westchester University, and she spent 7 years in human resources and training at SEI Investments. From there, she moved on to a 9-year career in a variety of sales and business operation roles at Amerisource Bergen, culminating in her promotion to senior director, overseeing a team of 90 inside sales reps. In October of 2019, she joined Workday, where she currently is a senior program manager. On the more personal side, Jessica married her high school sweetheart, and they have an 11-year-old daughter. She's an animal lover, a tattoo collector, and an avid self-care enthusiast. Jessica, that is quite a resume. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
This is great. So let's dive right in. In today's world, success has a million definitions. And many times, depending on generation, depending on your lot in life, whatever, we view success based on money or maybe generation, age, title. Tell us exactly how you define success.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'm super excited to talk about this because I'll be completely honest, my definition of success has certainly evolved over time, which is one of the key things that I would share with people too, is you have to keep reevaluating it. You have to keep sort of doing a little bit of introspection and figuring out, like, what does success really mean to me? I think early on, when I graduated from college, success was getting a job, like landing a job and starting out and, all right, I got it. And then from there, I had this vision of climbing whatever ladder that was, right? This construct of a corporate ladder. And I think particularly being the child of a father who was also in business and in corporate, for me, it was this vision of, all right, I will have a certain income and a certain title and a certain level of responsibility. A success will also mean I get to have a house and I get a certain car, and like just that sort of vision of what a successful, American dream is. And I think some of that, even for me, success I defined as who were people with certain titles that knew who I was in the organization, which again, like when you really start to think about that, like it's a little wonky, right? Like, oh, that senior vice president knows who I am, right? It was also about like, what meetings was I being invited to, or what trips was I allowed to attend? And these were all ways that I measured my own value. And I don't think there was anything wrong with that. Like, I'm very proud of my career. And I think the number of roles that I've had and my ability to move up was a function of being aware of all those things. But I was about 10 years into my career, and I remember, I had moved from SEI Investments to Amerisource Bergen, and I was sitting with a leader and a mentor, and I was upset. And I said to him, I've been out of school for 10 years and I'm just a coordinator. Because to me, that title was defining my success, and coordinator didn't feel like enough. And 10 years out of school, we all compare ourselves to others. I felt behind. I felt like I wasn't successful enough. And that mentor said to me, like, Jessica, you're not just a coordinator. And in retrospect, I was involved in amazing projects. I had a great team. I had a great manager. So, I think we do sort of have this way. We'll talk about it in a little bit, I'm sure. But so I finally got the big job. Tell a lot of stories. I'll get there, Scott. So I finally get the big job. I manage a team of 90 people. I'm a senior director at a Fortune 10 company. That must be success, right? I had high visibility. Pay was awesome. Came with a lot of responsibility, though. Like a lot of responsibility and accountability and stress. And so it was interesting because, it also finally a year in that role, I felt like it was time for me to try something new, move into a new role at Workday. And that's probably really when that definition of my current definition of success became clear for me. Because what I realized is that even though this new role sounds less successful, the title's lesser, I don't have any direct reports, I have work-life balance. I work at a company with an amazing culture. I'm a better mom. I'm a better wife. The pay is exactly the same as what it was in my previous job, right? So like the pay is still there. So for me, I've come to realize that success is a role that allows me to be my best self and feel like the me that I know that I am, but without sort of having to like give up. Yeah, like it helps me it gives me that balance, right? So what is the job, the career? It doesn't matter whether my dad thinks the title's right. It doesn't matter whether it sounds good on LinkedIn. It doesn't matter if I can introduce myself on the airplane as the something or other of something or other. I'm happy and I'm balanced and I can sleep at night. And so for me, that feels like success.
That is
It was
perfect.
a long-winded answer.
Yeah, no, that's actually perfect. I mean, I think many times as individuals and even as a society, we get trapped into comparing our insides to someone else's outsides. We don't know the other person's story. We just see all the glitter and the glamour and all the great things people are doing on Facebook or whatever it may be. And we somehow beat ourselves up over our own position in life and things. So let's dive into that a little bit. What advice would you give to our young people today who are viewing this? I know you said you need to be flexible and you need to reevaluate your definition of success frequently, but when you're coming out of college, you're coming out of high school, what advice would you give to that person right now as to how to begin to define their first definition of success?
Yeah. So again, I think as you mentioned, it's that sort of continuing to reevaluate it, but somewhere in the beginning, you're going to craft it. You're going to create like that vision of, I want to be successful. And so how do I begin that definition? And I do think that like we have this tendency to make our careers a part of our identity. And so therefore our career becomes our definition of success. So I think my guidance would be that to not allow just your education level, your career, that first job, the internship, any of those things to become your entire identity. Work absolutely does become part of who we are because it is where we spend such a significant amount of our time. So there's no way around that. And I think what's important is to make sure that wherever you are working or how you come into the workplace is reflective of who you are. And it allows you to be your best self so that whether you're spending 40, 50, 60 hours at work or you're spending time outside of work, you still feel like your whole self. So I do think it is getting that bigger picture of success. It's not just correlating career to identity. And I think the other part that's important for young people starting out is to make sure that you form that opinion yourselves. I think for anybody, I'm incredibly close with my family. My family's super important to me, meaning my mom and dad. And so I think sometimes I have a tendency to allow them to influence how even today at 37 years old, there are still times where my parents' opinion of my work, my life choices, I still feel like a little kid, like it matters to me. And so I think making sure that when you define it for yourself. Those people can still be mentors and guides and give you insights into things you haven't even experienced yet. So I'm not saying don't listen to them, but don't let it lead you astray as you're trying to figure out what you yourself are and what success is for you.
Absolutely spot on advice. And, it's great advice, not only for young people to take charge of their own lives, but also for the parents, maybe give their children a little bit more leeway to determine their own destiny. I think that's great advice, no matter who is watching this.
Yeah,
so,
I have two friends. I just recently visited them before all of this. I was able to go out to Tahoe. Graduated high school with one gentleman. He was selling kale chips and he carves snowboards by hand and sells them. His fiance, she leads hikes in the Tahoe area that she sells sort of on Airbnb. I'm not sure if their mom and dad had envisioned that as being the career. Like, I don't know if they have health insurance. I know they rent a great little bungalow in Truckee, but they are so happy and so that's okay, right? So again, I think there's these traditional visions of success and values and what other people might say we should be doing, and then there is what leads to true happiness and fulfillment.
That's great. And you hit on a key word, and that's should. And I could talk all day long. I could do one of these talks all by myself about how we should eliminate the word should in our vocabulary, but that's a topic for another day. So when we were preparing for this interview, you said something very interesting to me. You said young people, and in fact, people of any age, should understand two things about themselves. Number one, what drives them, and number two, what drains them. Can you expand on that and tell us a little bit what that means and why it's important?
Yeah, sure. I think where my mind initially was when I made that comment, and what I want to tie it back to, is I remember last year somebody asking, what would you tell somebody when they don't know where to start, right? Because the reality is there are so many job titles and career paths and companies, and like very few of them actually line up with like a class you took, or like a traditional, like you took a test and it said you were supposed to be this job. Like companies are making up job titles every day, right? So like it's very hard to figure out where to get started. And so what I encourage people at any stage in their career, and I actually just had a conversation with a former direct report that was around this, which is, even as you're in school, so let's start, pretend you're in school, there are certain classes, certain projects, certain teachers, certain courses, certain test types that you get excited about or that energize you. And those are clues into what you may enjoy doing on a day-to-day basis, right? Like, do you like working with others, or do you like working by yourself? When you're working with others, do you like to lead, or do you like to participate? Do you enjoy numbers and analytics, or do you enjoy being creative? Do you like when you take a test where the gray answers are fine and you can sort of say whatever to tell the right answer, or do you need it to be black and white? All of those things are clues into maybe what you will be good at and what you would enjoy doing on a day-to-day basis. So if a job title doesn't really clearly tell you what you're going to be doing, but as you start to look at the responsibilities or talk to people about a job, you can try to match up those things that drive you and hope that a bigger percentage of the things that you would need to do in that job match up with those. Now, on the reverse side, there are times where there are things that are going to suck the life out of you, right? So there's classes. Again, if you start trying to figure out what you want to do with your life and where you want to start your career, you can do this while you're still in school. But even if you have to pick that first job, whatever it is, just take a flyer and pick a job. When you are in that first job, even if you're like, oh, I don't know that I love this, learn from it. Why don't you love it? Is it that you don't like your manager? Okay, what is it about your manager that you don't like? That way, you have information that you can use to evaluate future managers. Or maybe is it the team that you're on? Well, what is it about the team that you're on? Or is it the work that you're being asked to do? I think a big part to remember is a lot of times your first job isn't all that fun. Like the reality is, it's probably going to be administrative. It's probably going to just be like proving ground, but there's so much that you can learn from that. And so, yeah, like I think, and like I said, somebody that was a recent direct report of mine, previous role, we were having this conversation, and a lot of the activities that she likes to do, a lot of the things that she is excited by and that drive her are sort of counselor-like activities. And there was this conversation about like, what do I do with this? Like, I don't know that I want to completely switch gears and go into counseling, but the reality is there's a lot of ways to use counseling type skills in the corporate world. So how can you make good of a situation that maybe isn't energizing and make it something that is, because you've identified the things that drive you? So can you switch up something and enjoy it because you're like, oh, if I could just get involved in this project? Again, you're always going to have sort of a pie, and you're going to have a percentage of things that you like to do and a percentage that you don't. Let's just try to get the half of the pie bigger so that you're energized and you're driven and that you're learning from the things that drain you.
Great advice. Great advice. Let's shift gears a little bit, Jessica. I mean, Many of us find ourselves in this instant gratification mode or an instant reaction mode. It's especially prevalent in today's society. Sometimes we feel that we have to react immediately to everything we see, read, hear, especially on social media. So let's shift gears and talk about a little bit of self-care here. Are we acting and doing these kinds of things out of fear that we will become irrelevant, or how do you balance society's insistence on this, always need to be connected versus unplugging and taking care of yourself and tuning out all the nonsense? How do you balance that?
Yeah, we could talk about this one for hours, Scott. It's funny. My husband is a blue collar guy. I told you I was, he's my high school sweetheart. He's been in blue collar work his whole life. And I've always been sort of the white collar route, if you will, right? The corporate world. And particularly now with the current situation, I've been working from home since March. So there was a bit of a difference. And quite frankly, for the young people listening to this, I don't know what their world will look like. I don't know if this work from home thing is going to be the new trend or whatever. But at least when I could go into the office, there was a beginning and an end to my day. And I still very much was connected when I got home, which I had to be sort of purposeful about. But now, especially, my office is off of my bedroom and the computer's right here. So he'll say to me, "When are you done work?" And what I'll say to him is, "I'm never done. It is when I decide to stop working that day," which is a really important realization to have. And you throw on top of that the fact that I have my cell phone because I don't have a house phone, and my cell phone is also my work phone. And so that's where I take my calls for work. I can check my email on there, but at the same time, I'm also getting notifications. Well, I used to be until I was purposeful about turning them off. You would get your Instagram notifications, or you would get your personal email mixed in, and everything would be hitting all at once. And then, oh, by the way, here's a new news story that's flashing at you, and it's dramatic, and it's going to throw you. So I think what's really important is you're not going to become irrelevant. You're not going to miss out on something important if you are not connected. The reality is we have to, and if you start doing studies on productivity, there's a lot out there to read. There's podcasts about productivity. I highly recommend that people really look into it, because you do need to figure out what your system is and how you can minimize those distractions. So, I've even had to get better about chunking out my day and making sure that I have 30 minutes of thinking and working time, and then I allow myself a distraction or two, right? I don't always let my emails pop up. Like, I have to make sure that I'm focused. I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent, but I'll bring it back, I promise. So I went to a summer camp for adults. It was a digital detox camp, and it was in the redwoods of Mendocino, California. And so for 4 days, 250 plus professionals were in the woods with no devices. So first of all, the fact that 250 people paid a good amount of money to rough it in the woods with nothing is a sign that we have a problem. Right? Everybody was there to seek digital detoxification. We weren't able to use our names. We weren't allowed to talk about work. Like, it was hippie fest through and through. But the biggest takeaway from that was we did not use time. We were not allowed to bring watches. We weren't allowed to have our phones. We weren't allowed to have anything. Instead, we used a pie to represent the day. And if you think about it, and I'm looking at my notes now. So I used to commute 1 hour each way. That is 8% of my pie. If I get 8 hours of sleep, that is 33 additional percent of my pie that's gone. So if I work a 9-hour day, because let's be real, it's never really 8 hours, that's another 30% of my pie. Like, you start to add that up. So if you add in there 5 minutes of checking notifications and social media throughout your day here and there, I'm not even talking about mindless scrolling on the couch, which that is a whole nother conversation. You are losing chunks of your pie that you could be using towards getting your work done. And if you really think about what's important to you, right? Because that's what we're talking about here. Like, success means that work isn't your life. Work is where you make the living to live the life you want. And if you are allowing 5 or 10 minute distractions to take you off course from meeting the goals that your company has set for you, meeting your responsibilities, you are getting in the way of your own achievement of that happiness and that success. And so I think for people to think about how much of that piece of the pie am I dedicating to the things that'll get me to a place of happiness and fulfillment, it helps you have this moment of like, you know what? Instagram's not that important. Like, I don't need to look at my TikTok right now. Like, I don't need to post what I ate for lunch because I need to get back to work. Find time, carve it out, and then also use the tools. Apple has given us a whole lot of tools to look at our own screen time, where you have a heart attack when you see how much time you spent on social media. I have cut my social media accounts during the week. I give myself an hour. On the weekends, I give myself an hour and a half. After that time runs out, my phone tells me you're out of time. Gives me the option to add more time, which I do sometimes. But most of the time, I'm like, all right, I'm done, right? Because that's the amount of pie I was willing to give to social media. So it was a long-winded answer, but hopefully.
No, it's a great answer, but I want you to say that one statement again. Work is where
Yes.
you go. Yeah, say that again.
That one is, for me, one of the most important realizations that I've had. So work is not our life. Work is where we make the living to allow us to live the life we want. Okay?
Perfect.
And that is so important to realize.
I love that. So as we wrap up here, Jessica, this has been a fantastic conversation, but I'm asking you, what final advice would you give our listeners as to how to strike that balance between our desire to achieve success, however we define it, and our absolute need to take care of ourselves? So it's a desire versus need. Is it a simple matter of which wolf to feed?
Yeah. It's funny because as I'm giving these answers, and then I have a daughter, she's 11. I have this moment where I'm like, somebody's going to listen to this and they're going to go back to their parents and they're going to be like, well, this girl said that I'm just supposed to be happy and I'm supposed to take care of myself and I'm never going to go work. I'm just going to go travel Europe for the rest of my life. So like, I think it's really important that, yes, we need to take care of ourselves, because if we are not taking care of our mental health, our physical health, our community, like all of those things, we are not going to bring our best selves into any environment that we're in, including the workplace, right? Like if there are days where I'm super stressed out or I'm not, you know what, full transparency, Scott, we were supposed to record this last week.
Yeah.
The night before, I legitimately had an anxiety attack because the world is a crazy place right now. It was on nothing specific, but I woke up at 2 a.m. with my heart racing and just a hot mess. And so I reached out to you the next day and I said, look, I don't want to do this. If, however, it will mean you don't hit your deadline, I'm in and I will pull it together and I will do it, because that commitment to participating in this is very important to me. More important than, but if you have the flexibility, then I was like, cool. So, and then I would say in the workplace, there are going to be times where you are going to have to do things you don't want. Now, let me be very clear. If you are ever in a toxic work environment that is ethically or morally not okay, you get out. Like that is not okay. You speak up, you make it known, because that's just not okay. But I used to go into the office in my first job. I would go in on a Saturday in my pajamas to photocopy because I was behind on photocopying. I wanted to make sure that my brand in the workplace was that I get stuff done. Was I happy to be there on a Saturday morning? No. Did it stress me out a little bit? Yes. But I knew that it fit into being successful in the bigger picture. Have I had managers that have not been the greatest? Yes, I've also had amazing ones. Have I had moments, my tattoos, this is the most I've shown them. I'm 37 years old. It's because I am now in a place where my job allows me to, my experience allows me to. I covered that up and I hid it, not because anybody told me, but because I believed that it would help me move ahead and allow me to make the living that would let me live the life that I want. But if those things kind of make you feel wonky or they stress you out because you're like, I can't be my true self, I want to have green hair and I want tattoos and I have to cover it, then just give yourself a little self-care. Take a hot bath when you get home, relax, figure out how to, volunteer, be social, go to events, do those things that you need to do to feel great, or don't, right? But again, that balance is, there have been plenty of times where I haven't been in the mood to go to a networking event or to go to that dinner after a long day of meetings because I really don't feel like sitting around and chatting. Work dinners are like 4 hours long too. They're longer than any normal dinner. But I knew that it would let me connect with people in the organization that would help further my career and help get me to those goals that mattered in my life. So that balance is remembering that bigger picture. What is success? What is well-being? Who am I as a person? And then where do I give and take? What are my non-negotiables? When do I bite my tongue? When do I live me to the fullest? And just figure all that balance out. And then I think so long as you can continue to look in the mirror and feel good about who you are as a human being, you won't be as stressed out because you know that you are being true to yourself. Like that's the ultimate goal. You're being true to yourself.
Jessica, that is the absolute perfect way to end our time together today. I can't thank you enough for everything. This is incredibly valuable for both, young and old to learn and to embrace and to adopt. So thanks for giving us a roadmap on how not only to define success, but how to balance our lives so that we lead the lives that we want to live. I can't thank you enough for your dedication to the foundation. I consider you a personal friend, so thank you so much for joining me today. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want more information from Jessica or want to reach out and expand on anything that she had to say, her contact information will appear at the end of this video. But again, Jessica, thanks so much. We hope you have a great day.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Right.